All right, welcome to this week's episode of the Road to Rich podcast, where we talk about entrepreneurship and the journey. And I will tell you that I have a fantastic guest joining me today that is immersed in entrepreneurship and helping not just what he does, but also telling the story of helping others and young folks that he's working with at the college. So let's get into that today, man. I'm excited to talk to you today, Brian. Thank you for being here. Brian Baber is my guest today, and Brian is the one who heads the Entrepreneurship College over at FSU Panama City. You also are the franchisee for Arthur Rudenberg Homes here in Panama City and Bay County as well. You make incredible homes. I've seen your stuff. It's fantastic. You also have been a mentor for students around here, served in Rotary, Bay Education Foundation, the Taunton Family Children's Home, tons of other things. Man, I can't even begin to touch on all of the community things you've done, but thank you for what you do there. You make a difference in our community in so many different ways, man.
It's a great community to live in and enjoy too. So I love being able to give back.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. I find your story and your journey fascinating, man. And, from everything I know about you and things that I've read that you've been involved with, it started early on, man. And, tell me about some of those early entrepreneurship adventures that you got into and kind of how you got your start.
Yeah, well, I grew up here in Panama City. Went to Florida State, got an undergrad in finance, and got an MBA specializing in entrepreneurship. I knew I wanted to have my own business one day. My dad was an educator out at Gulf Coast. He was a vice president at Gulf Coast State College, and he was always involved with real estate and buying and selling, and that kind of got me in that bug of the real estate side of things. And I knew I was going to do that one day, but my first job out of school, I went to work for a Ford Motor Company up in Dearborn, Michigan. And that was great. It was just really cold.
Yeah.
So I worked there for a couple years, and I loved Ford, but I really learned some great life lessons there. But I ended up moving back down to Florida, worked for an investment bank for a couple years. And while I was doing that, I knew I wanted to build homes. I just wasn't sure how I was going to connect all the dots. I grew up around that, and I wanted to somehow bring that back up into Panama City. So we were living in Tampa at the time, and I was studying for my contractor's license while I was down there. And I remember my wife and I, we went to the Parade of Homes, and we were touring these just beautiful homes. And at the time, I didn't realize it, but many of them were Arthur Rudenberg homes. And I thought I knew what a nice home was. I've been in a lot of nice homes over the course of my life, and but just everything was just in the right spot, and just the way sight lines worked out, and the beautiful open floor plans. And what ended up happening was we toured all these homes, and I was in the process of getting my contractor's license. I was studying for that. And one of my wife's family members came over for dinner this next week, and he said, "Hey, have you ever heard of Arthur Rudenberg?" And I go, "Well, yeah, I was just at the parade, and I got all all the magazines and stuff, and I brought that out." He goes, "Well, would you like to meet him?" And I go, "Well, He goes, because he knew I was going to go move back to Panama City and start a home building company. Yeah. And then he said, "Well, he's a friend of mine." He goes, "By the way, you like my home, right?" And I love this guy's home. His name is Barry Alpert, and he had this beautiful home on the water, and the home surrounds the pool and opens up onto the bay. Yeah. And it was just beautiful. And I remember thinking, wow, all these kind of dots are starting to connect here. And I said, sure.
I assume his home was an Arthur Rudenberg.
Yes, home. Yes. So Art had built his home too.
And you guys really do. Your homes are so well thought out, and the level of detail and the precision that things are done. I've always been impressed with that when I've seen them, man. I go into your places that you've been involved with, and I'm like, man, I wish I'd have thought of that, And it is impressive. Yeah.
And the thing about Arthur Rudenberg is they have the architects and the designers that come up with all those beautiful plans. And so that's not my forte, right? It's just really connecting the dots of putting the pieces of the puzzle together, getting the right people on the team. But anyway, he introduced me to Art. And I remember going into Art's office, and he would have been probably in his 70s, early 70s or so at the time, and he was still running the company. And I walked into his office, and there was this big map on the wall of the state of Florida, and these pins all over the map. And I said, "Well, what are the pins for?" And he said, "Well, that's where we have franchises." And I was like, "Franchises like a McDonald's franchise, It's like, "Well, kind of." And then he kind of explained how the process worked, where they would focus on drawing the plans and coming up with the designs, and then they have this back office software to help with purchasing and such. And anyway, I left that meeting. I'm thinking, wow. I think this could be the direction to go. And I remember calling my dad because he was going to be a partner with me in my home building company.
Yeah.
And I need to rewind for 1 second. When I was at the Parade of Homes that time, I remember telling Jessica, I said, Jessica, in 10 years, this is the kind of home I want us to be building.
Yeah.
And little did I know it would be just really within that next year. So we ended up buying the franchise and we got it started we bought the franchise in 2003.
Nice.
And,
that's awesome.
Got the home
Tell them you
first
need a
time started.
pinpoint right here.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. So we hit it off well and got off to a nice start. But as you know, the market went up for a little bit there, but then we had the Great Recession, which was really a Great Depression for home building in 08, 09,
you know, and that I'm sure that was a difficult time for you through that. But you've been steadily creating amazing homes in our area, man. And you're over 20 years on it now, aren't you?
Yeah, 22 years. Yeah,
that's incredible. Yeah.
But I'll tell you, some of the best stories come from the trials that we go through too. You mentioned me teaching out at FSU, and I'm sure we'll get into how that all kind of came together. But I think the students a lot of times can learn more from what didn't go right and the mistakes that I made and the things to look out for. Yeah, more so than even the successes.
I really believe in our lives, not just in business, but in our lives, that failure can be the best teacher of anything. Right? Like I've learned more from failure than I've learned from success.
Absolutely.
And that seems like a funny thing to say, but if you're an entrepreneur and you've been through it, man, you know it. So. Yeah.
Well, you think about this. You got this chain of links. They're all together, right? And you don't know which one is the weak link until one breaks, right? And then when that weak link breaks, that's the one you got to go work on to fix.
Needs attention. Yeah.
That was the one that you need to fix. Exactly.
Yeah. And I think we're always trying to better ourselves. And if there's things that you're doing well as a person, those are the things that just come naturally and easy. And the things that take the work that you have to work on, I think that's how we end up being better versions of ourselves that way, by working on the weak points. And so I like the chain analogy that you did, and I think that's a great way of thinking about failure and overcoming failure.
Even this morning, we have our production meetings on Thursday mornings, and I invited a friend of mine who is he's a homeowner. He lives in one of the homes we built, and he has quite a few businesses here in Panama City, and he was looking for an efficient way to run his meetings and such, and keep things organized. And I said, well, hey, why don't you come in and you can just be a fly on our wall? And so he came into the meeting. I mean, it was like really looking under the hood. And so he was getting to see really the way that our meetings run, the things that we talk about and all. And afterwards I said, it's crazy. We've been doing this for over 20 years and we're in there talking about how we can improve this and that. And you're like, wouldn't you already have that stuff figured out? And I'm like, no, because we're always evolving and always changing, always trying to make things better and better. So nothing is sacred. You got to always improve.
I always love when we bring in a new team member, right? And they have these things that they bring from wherever they've come from, and they're interjected into our process, and it's a fresh set of eyes that somebody has. And that is so just incredibly productive to bring in somebody that has a new perspective, man. I've learned that as we've gone along and adding in different team members and getting fresh eyes on things. There's always places where you can improve, and it's nice to get that feedback.
It is, and also it's important as a leader and business owner to be open to that, right? To say, hey, this is not the way it is, and it's always going to be this way. But being open to fresh ideas, I think, is really important.
It is. You have to invest that, and that kind of transitioned me to a question I want to ask you. Sure. So with regards to investment, whether it's personally or professionally, what do you think is some of the best investments you've ever made?
Best investments I've ever made. Well, I guess my portfolio is made up of, some is real estate, some of it is your home and your business and stocks and other things. But, if I wasn't going to talk about those material things, I would say, could I just say investing in my family?
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Whether it's personal or professional, I mean, sometimes investing means that you're going to spend time on you or spend time on your kids or whatever. And I think that's what I'm getting at is sometimes that investment is growth.
Okay. Okay. So let's go with that. So I have a daughter who's graduating from high school tonight.
Awesome.
Okay. And we have an amazing relationship. Okay. And I have 3 other boys that are younger than her. But sometimes I talk to other people, and I'll tell them, hey, my kids are 18, 16, 11, and 8, and they're like, oh man. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, this is great.
Yeah.
This is all. They're like, yeah, but how are you dealing with the teenage years? I'm like, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great. We're having a blast together, and it's but it's an investment. I mean, it's just like a marriage. I mean, if you want a great marriage, it's going to be work. You're going to work on it. You're going to figure out how to work with your spouse to improve your relationship. And it's the same way with kids too.
Yeah.
So I would say the investment that I've put into my family is absolutely the most important one.
Yeah. And I think sometimes in business that kind of gets lost too, man.
Mm-hmm.
And, I will tell you that for the first handful of years that I started my business, I felt like I was so focused and so consumed with developing that. I think some of that fell to the wayside.
Yeah.
It was something that I had to make a conscious effort to say, you know what? I'm going to recapture some of my time, and I'm going to invest that time into my family and into my kids, and make sure that those things are getting to a better place. I think that is a trap that entrepreneurship gets you sometimes, that you feel like you got to burn 80 hours a week to get it there. And it's not that you don't work hard, but you got to maintain a balance there that's healthy.
With the entrepreneur, it's always on, right? Or it's on unless you do something to turn it off. So I do have a story I can share. I remember where I was. You have these pivotal moments in life where you're just kind of like time stands still for a second, and you have time to make a decision of the way things are going to go moving forward. And I remember I had just gotten off the phone with a customer, and I had scheduled a meeting for the weekend, and that was going to change the plans that I have with my family for the weekend. And then all of a sudden, this is what I realized. I said, if something happened to me, yes, my customer would be upset, right? But they're going to go find another builder to build their house and finish things out, right?
Yeah.
But if something happened to me, who would be there for my family, right?
Yeah.
And so I started thinking about the people that invest into my family. And so we have a small group that we meet regularly. And I started thinking about those relationships and what do those look like with respect to my wife and my kids. And so what ended up happening is I made a commitment then that when I pulled into the driveway, I would put my phone on airplane mode in the evening.
Yeah.
And at first I thought the world was going to end doing that, right? I mean, how are you going to live with your phone off in the evening when all the things are coming in that you need to deal with, right? Well, that obviously caused me to make some adjustments in my schedule. So maybe I needed to get up a little bit earlier to be able to deal with some things.
Yeah,
but what that allowed me to do was spend time with my family in the evening, and to say it has paid off would be an understatement.
And I think that as you make those kind of adjustments, your clientele learns that that's the norm, right?
Yeah.
And there were times in the past where I've had clients that we've supported, and some will call at 7:00 on a Saturday morning, right? And I've learned to set the norms for that early on in the relationship, so that if it is a true emergency, yes, reach out to me. But if it's something that can wait, it's going to wait.
Yeah.
And when you do respond all the time and you're on 24/7, and man, I will tell you, my entrepreneurship brain never stops thinking about it, right?
Yeah.
I am mentally tuned into my business 24 hours a day. I think I have dreams about business, right? And so you have to be able to take that and set it aside, put the phone down, and focus as much as you can. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, but it does take intentionality, right? I mean, it takes intentionality to do that, and a decision. And sometimes it takes a wake up call to make that happen. And fortunately, it wasn't a wake up call on my end. It was a little bit of I just appreciate that it happened when it did, and I could make some changes before it became a problem.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm glad you were able to recognize that. I think a lot of folks get down that road and burn bridges and that kind of thing. But I would employ y'all that are entrepreneurs, especially ones that are early on, think about work-life balance and try to find some happiness, and don't forget the stuff that's important to you that way, because that's what keeps you going and sustains you.
I mentioned those times in life when time stands still. There was another time that happened. This would have been May of 2009. I remember this happening. So this would have been in the middle of the crash too, right? So maybe some of this is all kind of tied together. But I remember making this list of the things that I said were most important to me in life, and then I was at this event to do this, and then you kind of mapped out how you spent your day, and I remember looking at the things I said were important to me, and then how I spent my time, and they didn't line up.
Yeah.
And I realized I was like, oh my goodness, I'm either going to need, I was spending about an hour and a half to 2 hours a day watching television in the evening. And we really only have about 5 discretionary hours in a day.
Yeah.
Like most working people.
Yeah. Once you're done work and kids go to bed and you go to bed. Yeah.
And so I was like, am I going to actually write the words TV on my top 5 of my most important things in life? Or I'm either going to do that or I'm going to change the way I spend my time.
Yeah.
And so when that hit me, I realized I needed to make some changes. And so, there's things happen. And
man, that's a great observation, man. Cause I got, it's funny. People ask me, cause I'm in the tech world and all that. Do I play video games, shows and all that? And a lot of that I don't do, man. I haven't played video games in 20 some years, man.
Yeah.
I don't have time for it, and if I did, that's not how I would want to spend it.
Yeah, I want to go do the video game, like in life, right?
Yeah.
Right. I want to go fishing, right?
Yeah,
or I want to play some golf, or now it's pickleball. But
that stuff is so much more meaningful than me isolating myself and doing that. I would much rather go do something with my kids. I would way rather get out, go fishing with a friend, like experience life, man.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
So. Very cool. So I want to ask you, I'm really interested to find out. So how did you go from your corporate career, which you still do, to going into teaching? And I'm fascinated with that because, I know all of the different ways that you mentor and help young folks and just being able to go from that transition. Kevin Elliott and I have talked about this.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see your journey on that.
Yeah. So let me first back up and say, my dad is the most amazing man I've ever met. Okay. And I know, and I want everyone to be able to say that about their dad, but I know that this is true about my dad,
It's awesome.
And he, no one could have ever been more encouraging than him. And I'm so thankful I still get to see him all the time.
That's awesome.
We spend a lot of time together, but, anyway, I just feel like, God gave me a heart for people that might not also have had that.
Yeah.
And that may have led into mentoring and such. And so to maybe fill that role for some people that might need some extra encouragement. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I started mentoring years ago and just have done that kind of ever since I started. But I've always been a goal setter. And so I write my goals every year and I'll write down like life goals that I have that I want to accomplish in life. And one of the life goals that I have, or actually, I guess I've achieved it now, but was I wanted to teach at the college level, and I'm kind of a goal nerd actually. So I color coded my goals and to know that now that was going to be in my 60s. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I guess I'm 50 now, and I've been doing it now for 8 years. So
awesome.
So early 40s would have been when I started. So but anyway, I was in the gym one day and a friend of mine taps me and she's like, "Hey, my dad is starting this entrepreneurship program at FSU Panama City, and I told him that he needs to talk to you." And I go, I wasn't really sure how she made that connection. And I was like, well, how's that? Well, she remembered that when I was in college, I worked in the Jim Moran Institute in the College of Business in Tallahassee.
Yeah.
And the Jim Moran family is the one that was starting the College of Entrepreneurship. Yeah. Okay. So she made the connection of the two. And they were in our small group and went to the same church and stuff. And so anyway, I said, well, when opportunity kind of presents itself to a life goal, you probably should take a second look at that.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
And so I said, you know what, maybe I could see how this would work out. And so anyway, I went and met with her father. His name is Dr. Jim Dever. And he's got a fascinating story. He is an awesome man. He was an entrepreneur, owned 10 different companies, sold everything when he turned 41, retired, and then he went to college. Nice. And then he went to college, and then all the way and got a PhD.
Oh, really?
Wow. Yeah. After, this would have been in his 40s.
Well, he had the spare time for it.
He did. Yeah. But awesome, man. And so he brought me into it, and so what that meant was I needed to hire someone that could run the day-to-day operations of the business to handle some of the things that I was doing. So some of it was a trade-off,
Yeah.
and how I was going to spend my time. But it was really, I love helping people. I love encouraging people.
Yeah.
And so what better way to do that than with college kids? And I love that age too, because that is an age really where you could go one direction or the other in life.
Yeah. So what's your philosophy when teaching our current generation? I mean, what are the kind of things that you think about when you're teaching folks that are, 20-year-old,
Oh, yeah.
25-year-old kids that are getting started and starting business and all that?
I'll start with something real simple. Action trumps everything.
Yeah.
Just do something. Just
Yeah.
do something. Just, if you think this is a good idea, well, let's go try it. Let's go see. Let's actually go do it. Let's not write about it and theorize about it and read about it and practice. How do you launch a website? I mean, do you wait until it is 100% perfect, or do you get the thing launched and then that company can start selling their product, and you can go back in and you can continue to improve upon it, right?
To adjust it, yeah.
Absolutely.
I tell people that all the time, man. It does not have to be pinpoint perfect because it's going to all evolve over time anyways.
Done
right?
is better than perfect.
Yeah, you
right?
got to get it done. Yeah.
And so a lot of students come in now with, they've been, I don't want to say taught, but they've grown up in a world where everybody gets the star and everybody gets the first place or participation grade or whatever, and failure hurts, and failure is bad or something. But really, failure, like we talked about earlier, we learn more from our failure, right, than the successes. So we show them, hey, look at all these people in history that failed over and over and over again before they actually did succeed. So showing them that, but action trumps everything. Here's another one: is just because they think there's a need for something, like, hey, I have the best widget, that the world needs. Well, how big is that target market?
Yeah.
Right. And so let's spend some more time on the front end of surveying people. That's another one. But in the entrepreneurship program, it's really like a lot of the courses are business courses, but it's an entrepreneurship school. So they call them something different than the main business courses, because everything's got to distill down to the bottom line. I mean, are you going to be profitable to make this? Yeah, to make this happen?
It's a different set of things to think about when it's a business that's a real life, getting this thing ramped up type thing. I will tell you, man, I went to school for a long time. I got my master's degree at FSU Panama City. And when I went into business for myself, I learned something every single day to this day, man. There's not a day that goes by that I don't learn something new about business or something that I have to figure out or whatever. It's always learning.
Let me ask you this, since you said that, is how important are interpersonal people skills in business?
Absolutely critical. I've said it several times to folks. When I started hiring people, I used to hire primarily based on the resume, technical skill, and probably 20% personality and soft skills. It is probably 80-20 the other way now.
Yeah.
Like being able to work hard, get along with people, be customer service oriented. All those soft skills are so critically important.
Yeah.
I can't even begin to tell you just what an epiphany it was to me when I realized that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, everybody's getting along. It's because they're nice people and they can talk to each other and work together. And, really, I should hire people that are, able to get along. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's a guy I used to follow. His name's Darren Hardy, and he tells the story about, he was at this famous hotel chain, and he was going to be interviewing the CEO the next day, and he's in there, and everybody's doing what they should be doing and being very kind to him and stuff. And he comes in and he goes to interview the guy, and he said, "Man, how do you train your people to be so kind and stuff? How do you train them to do that?" He goes, "We hire kind people."
That's the key. Yeah. I mean, but I can teach technical skill, right? I can teach somebody how to technically create something and do that. I can't teach somebody to be a generous, kind, open-minded person, right? That's just who somebody is. And that was a big life lesson to me when I figured that out, man.
Yeah. Kindness, I think, and integrity is one.
Yes. Honesty, hard work. I mean, there's so many critical skills like that.
Yeah.
But if you find that kind of person, man, so much other stuff just takes care of itself.
Yeah. So I don't know if do you enjoy reading books?
Yeah, I do.
So like Good to Great. They talk.
Yeah.
It talks. Jim Collins talks about getting the right people on the bus.
Yeah.
And not worrying so much about like the seat that you're going to put them in, but like get the right person on the bus, and then we'll build a job description around that person.
Absolutely. And that's a great book. I was actually going to ask you if you had books and podcasts that you recommend to your students, and I know that you do your own podcast, and I'm sure that you do. I just was interested to see which ones you kind of felt were some of your favorites.
Okay, so when I was in college, my dad paid me $100 to read How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Nice, it's a great book.
It's one of the most foundational books. Really, you got to read that one. Mm-hmm. You got to read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Mm-hmm. You got to really read those before you can really read everything else. And then when you start reading everything else, you realize all the other ones are referring back to the principles in those 2 books. Okay,
you're right.
So those 2, and there's one that I wasn't even aware of until a few years ago. And when I found it, I was like, this is gold. It's called Leadership and Self-Deception. Mm-hmm. Okay, excellent book. So those are all kind of on that leadership side. So Good to Great is an excellent one. Built to Last, Atomic Habits is fantastic.
Yeah.
But for the entrepreneurship students, one of the things I love for them to do is listen to. There's a podcast called How I Built This with Guy Raz.
Yeah.
And Guy Raz interviews entrepreneurs, and they just tell their story about how they built their business.
It's so important to hear those stories. And you and I were talking a little bit before we started today.
Yeah.
And that's a big reason for starting this podcast is because these folks, and you're one of them that we talk to, there's so much incredible knowledge in their heads. Yeah. And when I started a business many years ago, there wasn't resources like podcasts and the video shorts that you can pick up little tidbits of knowledge and learn. And man, people have it so good today that there's so many resources for you to learn from genius people that you can pick up knowledge.
I think one of the hard parts today is there's so much out there, and how do you distill it?
Yeah.
How do you cancel out some of the noise and distill it into those most important things? And I think figuring out some way to collect notes and be able to refer back to them, I think is a real important thing for a skill. I mean, for young entrepreneurs to be able to do when they hear something, they need to figure out a place to keep that and store that and be able to refer back to it. I would be doing that right now. If I was 20 years old and I was trying to get something started, I would be collecting little pieces of data and things that I know I'm going to use this somehow. I'm not sure yet how, but I need to store that, and I'll be able to come back to it.
And I do that a lot with different shorts and podcasts that I see. I will save a lot of those things and then go back to them, and a situation will come up in life, and then I'll go back to that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I was going to mention too that one of those resources is your podcast that you guys do at FSU and the Lunch and Learns that you guys do.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about
that?
that?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. So it was actually we've been doing it for several years now. And it was very similar to the reason that you started this podcast, is we realized, hey, we have all these great entrepreneurs and business leaders in our community. Why not bring them onto the FSU campus and let the students learn from them, And it's also an opportunity for many of these people that I've interviewed have said, I've really never had a chance to tell my story like that before. No one's ever extracted it out of me in that way. And so it really becomes something that now they have it, something that they can share, maybe even with their own family. Because we decided to turn it into a podcast. It was Julian Rekasine. Yeah. He was one of the guys that I had interviewed once, and he goes, "Is this a podcast?" And I was like, "No." He goes, "Why not?"
He's like, "It should be."
He's like, "It should be." And I go, "Well, because I don't know how to make a podcast." And he goes, "I'll show you." And so he showed me how to put together. And so it is definitely not as high tech as what you have here, but it's the bare bones minimum of what it takes to have a podcast put together. And now these stories are saved forever, I guess, until I guess
and it's out there in the world, man. It's it's those kind of little tidbits of knowledge that you never know where they're going to reach. And that's the beauty of it is, something that we say today, somebody, 3 or 4 years from now might find it online and and help them in a way.
I was playing pickleball the other day, and it was I was playing against these 20-something-year-old guys, and he goes, "Hey, I think you're the one with that podcast from FSU, right?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, man, I really like listening to that." And I was like, "That's awesome." I was really excited to hear that because he didn't go to FSU. Maybe he went there at one point in time, but anyway, just that somebody was listening to it, it made me feel good.
It always amazes me when we post things online and, people come up to me in the streets and maybe they haven't even engaged with the post or the content, but I know they saw it because they say, "Hey, I really enjoyed when you said this and we're having this conversation because I really felt that way inside." Like, that's always cool that has reached somebody on a personal level.
Yeah.
And the frequency in which that happens to me is it really hits a spot, and it's like, okay, well, there's meaning behind what we're doing, and I know you care about that because, man, you do a ton of mentoring, you're working with students every day and all that, and I know that's a big motivator behind what you do, man.
Yeah.
When you're helping folks, like how do you, for a student, how do you define what success looks like for them?
Yeah. We do talk about success a lot, and because a lot of times when students come in, they just have like they have like dollar signs in their mind of what that's what success is going to look like. And so what I try to do is just I share a little bit about my own life, and the ups and the downs, and how if I use the dollars to only be my definer of success, I'd probably be a pretty unhappy person because it's gone up and down over the years. I mean, I'm a home builder, and the market can go up and the market can go down, right?
Yeah.
And so if I attach my identity to how much money I'm making, it's probably not a good thing, right? But in terms of success, so we talk about things like, well, what is most important to you, right? And maybe it is, hey, I want to have a family one day. Okay, well, what does it look like for you to have a family? Do you want to be home with that family in the evenings? Do you want to be able to travel with that family?
Yeah.
We also talk about, one of the beauties of becoming an entrepreneur is you do have earning power, or the potential of earning power, and what you can do with that. The types of vacations that you can take with your family.
It gives you. Yeah,
absolutely. But you have choices you have to make, right?
Yeah.
So if you say if it's only about the dollars, you're gonna work the 80, 90 hours a week, and your family's gonna pay the penalty of that.
Yeah.
But so I don't want to tell them what success is. I want to extract it from them and to get them to tell me, hey, what's important to you? Who are some people that you would say are successful? Why do you say that they're successful? Yeah. And get them to go a little bit deeper, because, you think about, one of the easy answers is people will, they say, well, this celebrity or something is a success or whatever. And you're like, well, tell me a little bit more about that, you know? And it's interesting how our society we will grab a hold of some celebrity makes a statement about one thing, and we think that's truth, ultimate truth, right?
There's so much tied to all of that, though.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's their status that's given them that platform, but are they an expert in that?
There's good and bad that comes along with that.
Yeah.
Though.
Yeah.
And I think success as an entrepreneur, to me, is an evolution of those. Maybe initially the hook is that, you see that you have the opportunity to accrue wealth and to make money and those kind of things. But over time, I feel like it's been, well, I can be in control of my own destiny that way. Or, hey, I can make an impact in this aspect of my life. Or, hey, I can get freedom back in my life with my family. And the beauty of entrepreneurship is you get to make it what you want it to be, right?
Yeah.
And the success to me has changed over the years.
I would imagine, you showed me through your offices next door. Think about the life that you're able to provide for your employees.
Yeah.
Right? I can obviously tell that, walking through those offices, having high employee morale and hiring people that want to come to work every day and having a fun environment, that's important to you. And think about that, that's got to define some success, right?
It really is, man. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because for me, being happy at work and enjoying what we do every day is such a critical piece, man. You think about people in business, man, and people that work for a living. It is most of your life. You mentioned it, man. You said there's probably 4 or 5 hours at night that you'd be with your family. The rest of the time you're at work. Why be miserable there, man? Make it a place you love to be. Make it a place that you feel inspired to be at, that you're motivated to get up and make a change. have positive influence. Man, we're changing lives. If we do a good job, people's businesses grow and they get better at what they do. And then they get freedom and those kind of things. Then if we do well, my staff does better. They have more time with their families. There's so much of that that's there now that I never thought of in the beginning when we started the business.
Absolutely.
So.
You know, the other day we did an activity in my company. You're familiar with like Simon Sinek, right? The Why.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Simon's great.
Yeah, he's awesome. And, you know, he wrote that book on the why. He had that famous TED Talk, you know, it was old school. But we were talking about why Arthur Ruttenberg homes, you know, like why Arthur Ruttenberg homes. So one of the things we did is we took an entire afternoon together and we distilled it down to, I mean, it sounds simple, but it took a long time and took a lot of hours and input to get to the statement. It was, you know, we believe that the process of building a home should be just as exceptional as the home itself.
Yeah.
So the process, I mean, that's what you get when you build with us, is the process of building that home. It should be just as exceptional as the home itself. And if we buy into that, right, if we can live that out, then we're doing a good deed for our customers.
Yep.
And then we took it a step further and we said, okay, well, what is your why? And what is your why? And what is your why? Why do you do what you do? And what gets you up out of bed to come here every day? And we all wrote our own whys and we shared them all in a document where we can all see what is the most important thing for each person. I mean, it was a powerful activity.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's the kind of thing like, I've been doing this for 22 years. Didn't think of doing that before, you know?
Yeah, but I think as you go through business success and failures too, I think you learn a lot about yourself and your why, right? I couldn't have told you the same why 12 years ago when I started the business, because it wasn't.
Right.
And I've learned the value of what I'm trying to do every day through the tough times, right? Yeah. And you've mentioned to me before, and I definitely want to ask you about this. You've had successes and failures, man. Like what has that meant to you in your job and working with young entrepreneurs to be able to convey to them, like, hey, this can be a positive. It's a negative thing that happened to you, but we can turn this into a positive. How has that affected your ability to work with them?
Well, maybe I can share a story that would help explain that. So back when the market crashed, you know, I ended up owing Arthur Ruttenberg a lot of money, well into the six figures. And he was a very patient man with me. And he said, well, you know, I will let you pay that back over time based on the sales that you have. But the reason why it happened was I had all these homes that never sold. They ended up short selling, and the money wasn't there to be able to pay the fees that I owed and such. And so I ended up with this giant debt. Okay. So he allowed me to pay over time a certain percentage of every dollar that came in. I paid a small percentage out. And it took several years to pay it off. Okay. But what I did is I paid it off the top. Mm-hmm. Okay. And this is gold for entrepreneurs. Okay. Because this is one of the hardest things I think that many entrepreneurs have, particularly that have their own businesses. All the money kind of goes in this one kitty and you're like, what do I have left over? How do I invest? Or how do I save for taxes and all that? Right. Mm-hmm. And so I remember that the last draw got taken out for paying him back. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to have to do that anymore. And then I realized it was always paid off the top. Mm-hmm. I never felt it. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel it like it was coming out of the bottom. Like when you have to write a big check at the end of the month when all the money's drained out, right? It's much harder,
you feel
right?
It, yeah.
You feel it much harder. And then I realized that, you know what? That's the way I need to save.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's the way I need to save for my taxes.
Yeah.
And so, you know, paying quarterly taxes, those are big checks you write every quarter, right?
Hurts, yeah.
And so what I did is I created 2 accounts. And I share this with my students, and I'll tell you a little bit more in a second, where every dollar that comes in, a certain percentage goes into my tax account and a certain percentage goes into a savings account.
Yep.
Okay. And I, instead of paying Art back now, because all that's paid off, right? Mm-hmm. Now it goes into those other 2 accounts. And then so when it comes time to pay my taxes, it's easy to write a check because the money's already there.
It's already over here.
It's already over there set. And then when it's time to buy an investment or invest in something, or I need to buy something, the money's already right there. Yeah. And as a business owner, it was always hard for me to figure out how much to save at the end, because you're always looking at that bottom line. Yeah. But when you can separate it like that, it has been a game changer for me. I'm part of a Builder 20 group. And it's a group of builders. We're from all over the country. We share knowledge and ideas. And I remember sharing that with them years ago. And several of them were like, it's too simple. It's just too simple. And then they started doing it, and they came back and they said, this is a game changer.
Well, and it's the same philosophy you have with like a 401k or something like
Yes.
that. You take it out pre-tax and it comes out of the paycheck. You never even see it and you never miss it, man.
Right.
That's like people that offer matching on business, and we do too. So if somebody offers you a match on your 401k,
Max it out.
Do it every time.
Yes,
At
absolutely.
least do the match, right? It's
Yeah.
crazy not to do the match because you're not going to miss the 3% or 5%.
Yeah.
It's going to come out. You're going to get used to the paycheck in there, and that money multiplies so fast because you're getting it matched.
Yes.
It's crazy when people don't do it.
I know.
Yeah.
So taking all that back to the students is as I share with them how that negative, that where I owed all that money to Arthur Ruttenberg, right? Huge negative, big hole. How in the world am I going to get out of this, right? How am I going to claw? Well, I clawed myself out little by little. And then once I got out, I realized, oh my goodness, this is going to change the way my life is lived anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it ultimately turned into a positive.
Yeah. And I think we have to be grateful for our failures, and I think that's a weird thing to come out of my mouth sometimes when I say it. But when you can be grateful for all of it, then you can take those things and let them be constructive parts of who you become, right?
Yeah.
And we are a accumulation of our successes and failures as human beings, right? And the key is you got to learn from them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Being able to learn from them is key, because when you don't learn from them and you find yourself finding that, doing that same thing again over and over again, that's not fun when you're having to pay the piper again.
Oh yeah. Are there certain kinds of common mistakes that you see new entrepreneurs make that they can hopefully avoid?
Absolutely. Probably the number one thing is thinking is how long it's going to take to get started. They think, well, all I got to do is do this and this. This and this, and I'll be up and running. I'll be selling. So they overestimate the amount of sales they're going to make. They underestimate how long it's going to take, and they also don't spend enough time on the front end. I think I mentioned this earlier about is the target market that they're looking to serve, is it large enough?
Yeah.
So what happens oftentimes is someone will come in with this idea. I've got this great idea. Here's this widget I'm going to make, and the world needs this widget, right? But really maybe they just needed that widget, right? And about 14 other people needed that widget, right? In the book, The Ride of a Lifetime, Bob Iger, he was the Disney guy, and he said, well, you don't want to be known as the guy who makes the world's best trombone oil. Like, how big's that market?
Yeah.
Right? When's the last time you had to buy some trombone oil, right?
All the time.
Right. So thinking about the market size that you have, right, that's important. And so I would say that's it, And then also, here's one more thing, and that I was just talking to the students about this the other day, is the reluctance to start down the path because they feel it's a forever decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you might start mailing DVDs to people in their home, right? Mm-hmm. And then you're now in their home and you're getting to understand their watching behavior, right? Yeah. And then technology improves over here, and now you say, well, we can just stream it to them. Right. And that's the Netflix, right? Yeah. And they put Blockbuster out of business. They weren't thinking streaming initially, right? They were thinking we're going to be a mail order DVD company, right? And so just do something. The action trumps everything. Just do something, and that's going to lead to something else.
Absolutely. And that's a great transition to where I was going to ask you next, was like, with entrepreneurs that are starting up businesses nowadays, especially the young folks, do you see trends in the world that is going to be game changers and innovative things that are going to happen over the next 5 years that you kind of see coming, different industries that are focal points for those young folks? Yeah.
So, I mean, it's almost cliche to say it now, but AI, right? Mm-hmm. And how that is changing our world. So I'm in a business coaching group also, and I just got off of a Zoom meeting a few minutes ago where they were showing all these tools for AI that I didn't even know existed, right? I mean, we're just used to using ChatGPT or something, right?
Yeah.
And there are thousands of other tools that can be used for AI that can help to improve our businesses. So I think becoming a student of that, learning that and understanding how to utilize that. I remember when OpenAI launched ChatGPT, it was like month one I signed up and I started to learn it.
Yeah.
And I probably use it every day since then.
Yeah.
It's
incredible.
Tremendously effective tool. And I remember thinking, okay, well, this also changes the way you teach too, and the way you grade, because I mean, really, I don't have them turn papers in anymore. There's no point in doing that because ChatGPT is going to write a paper, and am I going to sit there and quiz them on, did you write this or did ChatGPT write it? So I transitioned slowly where I said, tell me the prompts you used. How did you utilize this large language model to write this? And then we transitioned into presentations. So most of my class assignments are presentation style because one, right now, at least so far right now, AI can't stand up in front of a classroom and present.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to have public speaking skills, and you must have knowledge of the product or service that you're talking about to be able to talk about it. So I want them to use AI. I want them to use these other things so they can then laser focus on the things that only they can do. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Well, and I know, even outside of what you do at teaching at school, you also are a mentor outside of school, and you're talking about your church.
Yep.
To talk a little bit about what you do there.
Oh, sure. So we've gone to Lynn Haven Methodist for years and years now, and this was interesting. One of my students invited us to her. She had a wedding reception, or where are the gifts? You got bringing the gifts. I'm trying to think of what this was.
The registry.
Yes. So anyway, we went to go to it, and I knew it was at this other church, and we went, and we pulled in. I'm like, I don't think this is it, because the people walking in didn't look like they were going to that event. And so then I looked back at the invitation. I realized it was down the street. So I go down the street and I pull in, and I'm like, oh my goodness, they have a college ministry here at this church, and we didn't have one at the time. And so, long story short, because it is a little bit longer story, and I'll make this quick, is we ended up launching a college ministry at our church. And so we've been doing that now since, I think we started in August last year. Yeah. And we have between 20 and 30 college-age students come every Wednesday night now.
Nice.
And
so you talk to them about career path things and business and that sort of things? Or?
Yeah, we will. Last night I talked, the title was Dear 20-Year-Old Me.
Nice.
And so it was the things that I would want to be able to tell myself at 20 years old. But, a lot of it is scripture-based, or, questions that they have, things that are important to them that they want to be able to talk about. Yeah. And so it's relating it because they're really some of them are in a space in between. They've graduated out of youth, which is the high school age, but they're just not quite comfortable yet in the main sanctuary, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so there's that space there where oftentimes we lose them. And statistics will say that 70% of young people will walk away from their faith in their college years. Yeah. And frankly, I think that's a shame, because you spend 18 years growing, training someone up, and then you just turn them loose and you say, hey, good luck.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's right. And I think so we provided a space for them. And we feed them. Hey, that's important.
Yeah,
we got to feed them.
Important.
So we feed them every time, and then they lead their own worship, which is fantastic. And they're also now we put them in the rotation of leading the devotions too.
Yeah.
And so some of that is they're getting to work out their own faith by leading a devotion.
That's awesome.
So
yeah, very cool. Well, that's a great way of transitioning those folks from being new adults to. I don't know that I felt like an adult till I was in my mid-20s anyways, but you're right. That's a gap there that, I'm glad that you're taking the time with those folks to make sure that they feel, present in what's going on.
Yeah. And to talk about the things that they're facing, because there are real things that they're facing at this age, that they're questioning things, and the world is changing in front of them. Right.
Yeah.
And they're having to
so fast, man.
And they're having to make decisions, and to help them realize one that they're not alone,
Yeah.
right? And so I think it's been a real good thing.
That's fantastic,
Yeah.
man. Well, I will say that, there's so many things that you're involved with that you do a great job in making sure that folks aren't alone, man, and they have somebody that they can lean on
Yeah.
for advice and for guidance, man. And I certainly appreciate that about you. We're about out of time for today, but
Okay.
those kind of things that you do, Brian, they make an impact in people's lives. And I see
Thanks.
what you do, and I will tell you, I greatly appreciate that about you, man.
Well,
So
thanks,
thank
Aaron.
you for what you do.
Thanks for having me today, man. This was
of
great.
course, man. So, love to have some more conversations again sometime.
Let's
with
do it
you.
on the boat.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah,
All right.
let's do that. So, well, I appreciate y'all tuning in today to The Road to Rich, and please tune in again for another episode soon.